Yeah, the world is definitely smaller than it was in my grandfather's day. But being in Alabama has great advantages and great disadvantages. One advantage of being in Alabama is that nobody expects anything of you because you're doing. I know it's strange, but you know there is a stereotype that goes along with my great state, and so often people that are honest with me, they'll tell me that when they first started watching my videos, they didn't like them, and it's because they don't feel. People need to feel like they're getting smart in order to respect that they actually are getting smart. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what they, you know, when they hear my accent, they automatically. It's pretty funny. I call it the Southern man's blessing because when you open your mouth, your IQ is automatically dropped 25 points in the viewer's mind. It's great. So it's a good thing because they feel like you're talking at a level that they will always understand no matter what you're covering. And often you are if you present the information intelligently and in a clear spoken way. So no, being from Alabama is a great thing. I'm very happy that that's where I'm from, and I'm very proud of that. But it does make it harder to collaborate with other people often. I'm like a normal guy that happens to enjoy science, and I like to study it through setting up little experiments and figuring stuff out. I like to understand how the world works.
What's it all called? What's your little project called?
I run a YouTube show called Smarter Every Day, and Smarter Every Day is it's pretty fun. It's an attempt to take people from just surface level knowledge on whatever subject I'm talking about that week to a deep understanding, and it's kind of how I work with my kids. I have children, and we do that on everything. My wife and we try to help them understand the world, not just know about it. I am educated as an engineer, a professional engineer. Well, okay, I am educated as an engineer. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Alabama. I think I'm wearing, nope, not wearing a shirt. And I have a master's degree from the University of Alabama at Huntsville, which is this university that a lot of the NASA scientists from Marshall Space Flight Center go up to. And it's pretty cool. If you want to learn about rockets, that's where to go. So that's why I went there.
And what's your job now? What do you do? Because this isn't your full-time job, this YouTube malarkey, is it?
No, YouTube is a part-time gig, but it takes a lot of time. It's like a second job, but my full-time gig is testing rockets, all kinds of stuff, figuring out how they operate, how they perform, if they do what we want. My grandfather was the one person that changed the way I look at the entire world. He taught me that, you know, he was a simple man. He was a cotton farmer. He went to war. He went to the Korean War, and then he came back, and he did rocket design for Wernher von Braun. And it was pretty interesting because the same guy that would teach me about how to shoot a rifle in the woods or how to look at the trees and identify them, he would also teach me about the stars and teach me how far away they were. And he had this saying that he always said to me. He said, "I love you all the way up to the comet belt." And that really has changed my entire worldview because he was a man of emotion. He was a man that loved people, but at the same time, he was aware of his surroundings, and he had a very critical mind, and that really has stuck with me my entire life.
What happened to him?
Well, he died in 1999 when I first started college, so it was really interesting because he shaped the way I thought up until the point where I started getting formal education in these deep subjects, and then he left the scene, out of his control, of course. And when he left the scene, it's like I was released into the wild. And at that point, I had to view the world for my own and stand on my own 2 feet. One of the last things we did together is he cut timber. There was a great pine beetle that came through Alabama and destroyed most of the trees. And so farmers were cutting their trees down and selling the wood. Well, he took the wood and sold it and took me to New Zealand. Yeah, and so the idea was, he was a pretty risk-averse man, but he decided to do this great trip with his grandson, and it's something that stuck with me my entire life because neither one of us had an idea what we were doing, but we were exploring together. It was pretty amazing.
What would he think of Smarter Every Day?
Oh, he would love it. No question. Yeah, we used to do things like that all the time. He was the kind of guy, he would set up bluebird nests and he would check them every day, and he would take data on how many eggs each bluebird nest had. I'd forgotten about that actually. He had rain gauges at different places in his yard, and he would collect that data from different locations and tried to figure out how the pecan tree on one side of the yard would affect the rain that made it to this fence post versus other things. I mean, you just wouldn't believe this guy. So, yeah, he would love it. He would probably help me on several things if he had the time to do so. Almost to a fault, he never met a stranger. And so I remember one time we were on this ferry from the North Island of New Zealand to the South Island of New Zealand, and I was sitting there talking with a guy who worked on the Channel actually, over in the UK, and he said, "Oh, it appears your grandfather's got another man in the tractor beam." So every time he met somebody, he would draw them in and have a deep, meaningful conversation with everybody, and it was great because these people he was talking to had no idea what was about to happen to him. It was fun watching that. So yeah, he tried to meet everybody on their level.
Having spent the last week with you,
Yeah.
you could be describing yourself. How similar are the two of you? Because this is exactly what you're like.
It is. It is. Well, I mean, we're very similar. I mean, the only difference is I had formal education, whereas he did not. He was the first in the family to go to college. He learned how to be a draftsman, and that's what he did for NASA. He was a designer, but he didn't have the formal education that I had. So there's really not a lot of difference. My father is he was an auto worker, and my mother as well, when I was growing up, and so they were in the trenches, if you would, of American society, trying to make money to provide for 4 children. And so my dad would take me at night a lot of times to second jobs and things like that, and he would teach me what he was doing about mechanical measurements of parts and things like that. And so that really got me interested in mechanical engineering. So yeah, I guess my father and my mother can't be discounted either, but I don't know. My grandfather really shaped the way I think and view the world, my worldview, if you will.
Why do you make these videos?
Okay, there's several reasons I make Smarter every day. The first one is, if you talk to my wife and I, it's a very calculated thing. So we value education very much. It's changed our lives. We met in physics, and it's I don't know. Our lives are very intertwined with education. I make Smarter every day to help educate the world, and I want them to have a little bit of that worldview that they don't have at this point in time, anybody that watches it. So, I mean, if you see something, just anything, like why does a limb on a tree, why do the limbs grow off at certain angles as they go down the length of the limb? Why are you not asking questions about that? I mean, the world is very interesting and amazing, but a lot of people just walk by it because we're too consumed with getting our Starbucks, like we were talking about earlier, things like that. I mean, that's a lot of the intent. My wife, we figured it out like this. My wife is more educated than I, actually, but we've decided that she's going to spend her time and talents to focus on our family as far as education. She's going to educate our children, and I'm going to use my time and talents to help educate the broader world, the people outside of our family. But together we work together to try to draw out the other one's strengths. And so she's definitely a driving force behind Smarter Every Day.
What does she think of it?
Well, initially my wife thought that it was kind of a hobby. I'm notorious, if you talk to her about it, I have these waves of hobbies. And some of them will peak higher than others, but a few months and then they're done. But my wife has been extremely supportive to the point of self-sacrifice. I mean, we usually make calculated decisions on what I'm going to do to create videos for Smarter Every Day. For instance, this trip, we decided a long time ago that I was going to take 2 weeks and go to Brainstem in Canada and also come down to this convention. But I think we miscalculated on this one. It took way too long, and I wish I was home with her and the kids. But
what, you don't like sharing a bed with me?
If I had the option of sharing a bed with my wife or sharing a bed with Brady Haran from 60 Symbols or Periodic Videos, then I would probably snuggle with my wife.
That's a fair call, man. You are versed in the scientific method, and you work in a scientific field, so you're aware of the need for sort of precision and impartiality and testing and experiment. You know that stuff
Yes.
better than most.
Right.
Yet your videos have a very kind of rough edge, imprecise feel to them. They're kind of, while they're full of scientific content, they're very unscientific in other ways. They're not what it's like to be in a lab. How do you reconcile that? Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, that's me, right? I mean, so if you go back throughout history and you research some of the scientists and inventors and designers that have changed the world, often in the history books you'll see things about how they live their normal lives because they're normal people. I mean, there has to be a spark there that makes people want to learn. I am very rough in how I present the methods because that's how I arrive at these things. I'm not just sitting around and saying, okay, today I will make a video about the gravitational flow regime of honey. I arrive at those things through the scientific method. What variables does it take to change things, and I try to reflect that in the video because it's like a path of discovery. So that's just how I come about to the information.
How do you find stuff out? How do you find, because you do fill your videos with a lot of detail. Where are you getting this detail? Are you going on Wikipedia? Do you drill deeper? How do you find stuff out?
Well, I usually try to call the world expert. If I can find the world expert, that's where I go. I mean, I'm not a journalist like you, a world-class journalist, but I try to find the horse's mouth and get the information from him. For instance, when we were researching hummingbirds, I went to the top hummingbird flight research guy in Washington State, and there's another guy up in the Midwest somewhere. And so I find those guys, and I try to pick up the phone and call them and ask them if I can have some of their time and if they'll give me input on whatever I'm researching. And that's the only way to do it, right?
So, like, world-class scientists, like these people you're calling, I guess they're used to sometimes getting a phone call from like the New York Times or New Scientist. What do they do when some guy from Alabama calls up and says, I'm making a YouTube video? How helpful are they?
Usually when they hear that I'm making YouTube videos, they're turned off a little bit. They are. But typically, I mean, I have such a backlog of videos at this point, I will find a video that's in a related field, and I'll forward them that email and say, I want to make a video about the subject that you care about most in the world. And I want to make it in a way that's really fun, and I want to learn about it, and I want you to help me. And often when they see what I'm all about and they watch one or two videos, they're very receptive and helpful. You have to tell an interesting story. I have no formal film training at all, zero, and I think that's reflected in the videos. But I want to be respectful of the viewers and not take for granted their time. And so my intent is to make something that's interesting, and often I'll sit on video for months until I can get something more appropriate to go with it. So, I mean, for instance, I did a video recently that involved footage from Germany, Washington, D.C., in my backyard. I mean, so often I'll sit on this video until the time is right because I don't want to disrespect the audience.
Sometimes at the end of your videos we'll see a Bible verse.
Yeah.
What's going on there? That seems incongruous with some science content.
Yes, a lot of people would say so. I'm a man of faith, and people think that I'm a man of faith because I'm from the South and it's a cultural thing, and so it's easily dismissed. But it's inconsistent with reality because I've taken a lot of time to try to disprove the existence of God, because to not do so would be inconsistent with critical thinking, and so I've taken. Let's see. I lived with a Hindu guy for a while. I've lived in Africa for an extended period of time with an Islamic family, a polygamous Islamic family. And I read atheist journals and things like that. And it's important to me to stay intellectually honest. But my faith is something that I can't kill no matter how hard I try, because I do try. There's a group of people known as the Bereans, and their whole deal was anything that was presented to them, they took time to try to search it out and figure out if it was true or not, and that's kind of where I'm at. But one of the verses that I most often use is Psalms 111:2, and it says, "Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them." And that was a verse that was on the Cavendish lab above Faraday's lab, where the electron was discovered. And there were a lot of people in history that were great men of science, but also had faith, Newton, Faraday, Kepler, I believe it was Kepler. I mean, a lot of people. And I'm wondering if they were having the same thoughts that I am today. You know, why? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, to the most part. I mean, I can't explain away my belief in God, and I try very hard to, because to not do so would be intellectually dishonest.
But it's funny, we live in a world, this might not be true, but it sometimes feels like we live in a world where religion is pitted against science. And you almost seem like a soldier for science.
Yeah, yeah.
You're like a double agent.
Some people have called me a science missionary, like when I go to Africa and teach kids about math and science. I wouldn't say I'm a double agent. I mean, there's a view in the world that science and faith, I won't say religion, there's a lot of evil that's come from religion. There's a view in the world that science and faith are mutually exclusive things, and that's simply not true. It's, you know, people want it to be true, but for reasons I explained to you earlier, I mean, fundamentally, I know that I am, as a creature, I'm wrong on many things. Sometimes I want to do things that are wrong, and I can't control it. I have to rationalize that. I have to figure out why, and why is that consistent throughout every single person that's ever existed. So yeah, that's how I've arrived at my faith in Jesus Christ, because the things that He say are consistent with the beliefs that I feel in my heart that are programmed into me. But yeah, I get a lot of flack for that, and I'm okay with that.
If you could have all the people in the world watch just one Smarter Everyday video that you've already made,
Ooh.
what one would you want them to watch?
Oh, goodness. Oh, man. Well, my favorite video that I've ever made is Operation Rocket, and that's when we went to Africa. And there's not a lot that you learn in that video, and that's why on my channel I tell people to watch at least 2 videos, because often they don't give me, they hear the Alabama accent and they're turned off after the first. But
come on, Destin, you're cheating. They can only watch one.
They can only watch one. Okay, if you can only watch one, watch Operation Rocket. Yeah.
And if you can watch 2?
If you can watch 2, I'm quite fond of the Raptor flight video, because it talks about the flicker fusion rate of the human eye, which is something I'm interested in and I'm not an expert in. You know, I'm an engineer that, you know, I can talk intelligently about structures and rockets and things like that, but it's really fun when you learn something. You know, I take my answer back. One thing I thought was interesting was I made a video about why you didn't die at birth. My son was living in my wife's womb in a liquid environment, and then he went to a gaseous environment. And I had no idea why that was. And so the video was actually me learning the answer to the question. And so I thought that was pretty cool.